are listening to I Am Refocused Radio with your host, Shamaya Reed. This show is designed to inspire you to live your purpose and regain your focus. And now, here's your host, Shamaya Reed.
Hey, welcome to Am Refocused Radio, man. We are here once again, and man, today we have an amazing show lined up for y'all. We have a special guest. She is a licensed clinical social worker, a trainer, consultant, and a lecturer. Her name is Avni Panchal, and she has an amazing website that you can check out. It's strengthandselflove.com. Today, we're going to explore the topic of benefits of therapy, and before we do that, I want to welcome Avni to the show and say how you doing.
Hi.
Man, appreciate you being on. So first and foremost, thanks for taking time talking to our audience today. Kind of set the scene for us, man. Explain what you do and how that works for your community that you serve.
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Avni. I'm a licensed clinical social worker. So what that means is I can also be a therapist that runs a private practice. And that is exactly what I do. I have a private practice that's virtual. I see individuals and couples. And I also provide trainings to social workers in the Bay Area because I reside in Oakland, and different training topics to other therapists as well. And I'm a lecturer for San Francisco State in their social work department. I do consulting work for organizations as well. So wear different hats, but primarily as a licensed clinical social worker, I do have a private practice there that I run that I'm very passionate about and hoping to share some knowledge as it pertains to the practice.
And man, let's go ahead and jump right in. I mean, when it comes to your daily practice, when it comes to therapy, kind of break that down for the audience. What are some different types of therapy techniques and how that benefit your clients?
Yeah, absolutely. So I also started, and I meant to say this in the other question, but I started as a social worker. So therapy to me definitely was something that I didn't know I would do full time. And, here I am years later, absolutely doing exactly that. But as a social worker, I really was more in the space of wanting to help people with more direct practice. Therapy is one-on-one, and it's a lot more mental health focused. So over the years, I've also had my own learning of what it is to be a therapist, because as a person of color, I genuinely saw therapy as something that is very white-centered. And, I thought about, okay, you're going to sit down and you're going to talk about feelings and how do you feel? And I, as a social worker, didn't necessarily connect with that. So I had to bring in my personality as a therapist of color. So that is something that's very important to me. Having said that, for individual therapy, I do, see a wide range of clientele with different topics. So whether that's stress and burnout, which has been really, really big, especially after the pandemic, trauma, whether people have been adopted and navigating the adoption process, identity, and identity could be anything, whether it's sexual gender identity, but even just our cultural identity or our career identity, and how you're navigating those sort of situations can also come in. And then with couples, it really depends on what the couple is looking for, whether it's premarital counseling or after marriage counseling, or just they're in a long-term relationship and they're needing some support around communication, or there's been infidelity, or there's life transitions. Maybe they're caring for another family member and that's impacting their relationship. So it could be a myriad of different things. Primarily in terms of therapy modalities that I would utilize is cognitive behavioral therapy. CBT is another acronym that gets used for cognitive behavioral therapy. And all that means is the primary basic theory of CBT is if I help you change what is going on in terms of your thoughts, you will be able to change your behavior, because oftentimes our thought derive our action. And then I also use this other modality called dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. And essentially that means that how do you hold maybe two opposing truths that may be coming up, and how do you kind of reconcile with that? I'm also very big on solution focused therapy, because sometimes people don't need, numerous sessions, or like they don't want to be in therapy for 6 months or a year. They want something that's a particular topic they want to work through. And so solution focused therapy, exactly like the name, is pertaining to that. For the couples piece, I do use Gottman therapy, which is an evidence based therapy for couples. And essentially, it kind of helps you break down some of the communication things that are going on, different patterns of how you show up in relationship, and what are the underlying things that may be going on. So I know that's a lot of therapy lingo, but those are some of the modalities that I would potentially use in my therapy practice. Another one that I would just like to add is EMDR, which is eye movement desensitization reprocessing, a lot of words, but essentially that means, when we have something significant that's happened to us, maybe it's traumatic, maybe it was a narrative that we have in our mind. Essentially, we don't have a timestamp to that thing. So let's say if I got into a car accident, when I think of sitting in that car again, it feels like I'm in that car again. And what EMDR helps you do is it helps you reprocess and desensitize a little bit about the event. So you definitely remember that there was a car accident, but it's not as jarring as it's happening right this second. So that's another modality that I've definitely used in my practice as well.
And for those listening, you listen on Refocused Radio, talking to our guest, Avni Panchal. And when you making that supportive space, it's also creating a safe space for your clients. What are some of the tips that you share with someone who might be the first time coming to you, and they might have the stigma and shame, associated with prior, reaching out to you? How do you kind of take that away and make sure that they feel comfortable?
Yeah, that's very real. And thank you so much for saying that, because that stigma is so real, especially if you're a person of color. I'm also an immigrant, so I know that's big in my culture as well. And so that's very real, right? Because sometimes we have this underlying belief that if I'm asking for help, maybe I'm being, quote unquote, weak, or I should know this, I should figure this out on my own. So even if you go on my website, on my About page, I'm very clear on asking for help is actually a sign of courage. And I really want people to recognize that it was a really big deal for you to even get to a place of, hey, this isn't working. I need help. I want to talk to someone. And then the fact that you decided to talk to someone or reach out, that's major. And so I definitely have made sure, just as a therapist, because I know how big that is for people, on my website, you can sign up for a consult right this second today, and you don't even have to email me, because sometimes that back and forth can feel really scary. If you have to do that with other therapists, the tips that I give for someone who's new, who wants to start looking for therapy with a particular person, I would write out a blurb of 2 to 3 sentences. If it's a particular time that you need, a particular insurance that you're wanting, or what your thing is that you're wanting to work, write out an email that's sort of a draft that you can then email multiple therapists, so you don't have to retell your story over and over again. And really realize at the end of the day, after the consultation, you want to make sure that you're comfortable with the person that you're talking to, because they could be really amazing, but if you're not feeling that comfort, that might not be the right fit for you. So I'm very big, especially when I take consults in the beginning, I'm very open in sharing with the clients that I have consult with, like, hey, see more than one person and really figure out what is your comfort level. And I really want to make sure that the people who are new to therapy or trying this on, to not be afraid of asking questions, because this is a service for you and you really want to make sure that it's going to work for you.
And when your clients integrate the insight and skills that they learn during the process of therapy and apply it to their daily lives, how do you continue to keep them motivated in both short term and long term?
Yeah. So if you're working with me, and every therapist has a different way of doing things for sure. I generally ask for goals upfront on what are specific things you're wanting to work on. And then we, start working on those things. So if it's anxiety, for example, you and I would be working together and figuring out, okay, what are specific things that we could do. If it's weekly that I'm meeting you, then I may give you specific tools. Let's say it's mindfulness based, meditation to work on, or maybe it's a particular exercise to do with the anxiety. And I'm very big on telling people this is going to take some time, but you will see a gradual difference. So most people generally are motivated on their own, actually, because they start noticing and have more awareness around, oh, yeah, 6 months ago or 3 months ago or even 2 months ago, I would have reacted very differently. But now I have more awareness and I did slow down and I chose to respond versus react. So they have motivation on their own. If for some reason they're not motivated, then I would go back to asking, like, hey, these were the goals you wanted to work on. Where do you think you're at? Is there anything that you want to modify or change? But therapy really, the way I see it is it's you getting to know you at a much deeper level so that you can understand why you make certain decisions, why, certain things trigger you a little bit more than other things. The more you have awareness, then the more ability to take actions on those things. Oftentimes, we're not even aware of what may be the reason behind our decisions. So therapy sort of puts up this mirror for people and getting to really know themselves.
Once again, we're talking to our guest today, Avni Panchal, and you can go to her website, strengthandselflove.com. And that's a great title for the website. With what you do with your clients, I'm just kind of stealing from your page, if you don't mind. You're helping them get to a place where, there's less self-doubt and less judgment and more compassion, self-love, and strength. That's straight from your website. Mm-hmm. How important is it for people to really see the bigger picture? Because yes, they're getting these services, but like you're saying moments ago, being motivated to, I guess, like break free from whatever is holding them back allows them to really start living life from a more healthier perspective, if you will.
Mm-hmm. It's very important. The more authentic and genuine we can be in our lives, the more we live in our truth, if you will, the better it is for us, right? Because we're not then second guessing ourselves. We're not doubting our decisions. There's more confidence we feel. That then in turns increases our self-esteem. That then increases our ability to love ourselves a little bit more. So it all has a ripple effect, if you will. And it's extremely, extremely important. Oftentimes when people are coming to me or any other therapist for that matter, generally there's a cost that they've noticed in how they're doing things and how it's impacting them and it's not working. So oftentimes people do realize the cost of not being authentic and, not being able to work through certain things and the impact that it's having. So I absolutely believe in wanting to have people recognize their inner strength and have them learn how to practice self-love. Now, I do want to say self-love is this very buzzword, if you will. Self-compassion is another one as well, where it's very popular out in our culture, but sometimes we don't really know exactly what that is. And so I really try to break it down in tangible things. So self-love could really look like saying no to something that you really want to say no to, even though deep inside you're like, oh, maybe I have to do this thing or I should do this thing. That's that judgment piece that comes up or a critical voice that comes in. And so self-love could simply mean that, I'm going to take care of myself and I'm going to go for a walk. So whatever that is, as it pertains to your life, I try to make it as tangible for you in terms of what that self-love looks like for you. Because I've also noticed, especially as a person of color, this is something that I'm speaking for myself as well. There are many times where it feels very selfish to take care of ourselves when really that's what's going to sustain us long term, whether it's in our career, whether it's in our families and our friendships. And so it is extremely important, but there is this negative connotation sometimes that's attached in having boundaries or taking care of ourselves. Feels sometimes selfish. And I'm really here to tell people that it's actually sustaining you long term. So it's not a bad thing.
Once again, talking to Am Ponchal. You can go to her website, strengthandselflove.com. Again, that's strengthandselflove.com. You mentioned the word boundaries. What, for our listeners, what is a healthy way to approach that? Because, is there a balance, or is there a certain technique to set, boundaries for every individual? Because you can be overkill, or you can actually be more healthy in protecting yourself from, doing things that can overstress you.
Yes, I really appreciate that you brought that up, because when someone realizes, like, let's say a friend has been calling you when they're really, distressed and upset, and you're taking their calls, but at the end of the call, you're really feeling the residue of now you're sort of holding on to whatever's happened to this particular friend. Now, just because you're realizing maybe I need to put boundaries, sometimes we can go to the other extreme of I'm going to say no to everything. That also doesn't work. So a quick way that I tell my clients, and I'll say it here as well, is boundaries are yours, and it's not going to happen overnight. So I have people scale what's the most important to what's the least important. So on a scale of 1 to 10, if 1 is the least important and 10 is the most important, with whether it's a friend or family member or partner or a boss, whoever this individual is, you may want to start ranking what's the most important thing. So maybe the most important thing is that when I'm working from 2 to 4, I really can't take calls. That's a 10. But them sending you a text might be a 5 or a 6. So once you have scaled it essentially in terms of order of importance, you then only focus on your 10 and 9. And even though it's uncomfortable, you sort of set down your 8, 7, 6, or below, because boundaries take a lot of energy and a lot of consistency. And if you haven't done them if you haven't already started them, it's going to be really challenging and it's going to get really uncomfortable. So we want to start small. And so when we start with the things that are most important, that is a little bit more easier to manage. So with whoever you're wanting to put boundaries, first figure out what is the most important one that you would want to implement and start there. Don't start with any and everything, because kind of to your point, that may feel like overkill. And you may not also be able to hold that line, because now you're holding 10 different things that you're saying no or yes to.
But the benefits of therapy is what we're discussing today on Refocused Radio with Am Ponchal. I mean, it sounds like these are another sets of tools that you just put in your toolbox, and using services like yours is a reminder of how necessary is what I'm trying to say is to have that kind of maintenance in your life. And if you allow it to slip away, it can be dangerous.
Absolutely. I mean, we take care of our bodies and go work out, and, maybe we go for a walk, or maybe we drink enough water, or, eat healthy. So we're absolutely taking care of our body, and that's considered to be something that's completely normal. And I'm hoping that in the next coming years that we see mental health at the same level. It's definitely changing, and I've definitely seen a change since the pandemic. We're talking a lot more about mental health, which makes me very happy. And I'm really hoping just the way you take care of your body, we also want to give space to what's coming up potentially with feelings or emotions or things that are working or not working, and how we give space to that. Because oftentimes we tend to be moving past it, and then it comes later when it has a deeper impact.
And last question for you, for our listeners, talking to Am Refocused here on Am Refocused Radio. With your work as a therapist, I mean, do you have a therapist, or do you have someone who kind of keeps you in check or accountability to stay motivated as you are providing these services to your clients?
Absolutely. And I wholeheartedly 100% agree that that is necessary. So I definitely have a couple therapists that I consult with if I'm feeling like I'm stuck on something or I need some support. And then I do have a coach of my own that I've seen for some time now. And that's my space, because if I'm going to do this work, I also need to make sure that I'm taking care of me, and I'm not going to be able to take care of anyone else if I'm not taking care of me.
You can go visit her website. It's strengthandselflove.com. And someone wants to contact you for more information and see if they're a good fit with you. What's the best way that they can approach that?
Absolutely. So my website is the best way to book a consult. You can do it right this second. There would be slots available when you click on schedule consult, free consultation. It does require a credit card, but you were not going to be charged for a free consultation. I also call myself the Indian counselor on social media. So please follow me on Instagram, YouTube, and I just started a YouTube channel, so it's up and running. There'll be more videos there, and TikTok at the Indian Counselor. So there's a lot more content on Instagram and TikTok at the Indian Counselor. But my website would be the best way to reach me in terms of the therapy service piece.
Well, once again, been listening to Refocus Radio, talking to our guest today, Am Refocused, and today's been exploring the topic of benefits of therapy. Make sure you go to her website, like she said moments ago, is strengthandselflove.com. And I want to say thanks again to you, Am, taking time in your schedule talking to us today.
Thank you so much.